At its peak, Among Us was more than just a party game. It was a global moment, a phenomenon. It wasn't unusual to see it trending on Twitter, dominating Twitch, and showing up in memes, merch, and even US politics. But now, it's quiet. Almost too quiet. This is Frame Theory, and today, we're breaking down the rise, peak, and slow fade of one of gaming's most unexpected success stories. This is what happened to Among Us. Chapter 1. A game no one noticed. Among Us didn't burst onto the scene with $1 million budget or AAA graphics. It launched in 2018, almost invisibly, created by a tiny indie team of 3 developers under the studio Innerslot. The idea was simple: mix the classic social deduction game Mafia with fast-paced tasks, throw it in space, and keep it casual. No one cared. The game had fewer than 100 players most days. The servers were quiet, reviews were lukewarm. Even the developer nearly gave up on it in 2019 because the player base just wasn't there. They released a couple updates, added new maps, but the game still felt dead in the water. In fact, they had already begun working on Among Us 2 because the first one just didn't catch fire. But that was before 2020. And the internet decided to change everything. Chapter 2. The pandemic, the streamers, the perfect storm. March 2020. The world shuts down. People are stuck indoors, isolated, anxious, and desperate for social interaction. And while some turn to baking bread and watching Tiger King, others turn to gaming. One streamer, Sodapoppin, casually streams Among Us in mid-2020, almost 2 years after release. And somehow, it clicks. The simplicity, the betrayal, the shouting in Discord calls. It was perfect content. Soon, it spread like wildfire. Disguised Toast, Valkyrie, Pokimane, Corpse Husband, even members of Congress. Yes, actual US politicians start playing on stream. Among Us became more than a game. It became a shared experience. It's the background noise of lockdown life. YouTubers are posting highlight reels daily, TikTok is filled with impostor memes, sus becomes part of everyday slang. And it's free on mobile, cross-platform, easy to pick up, even easier to meme. Innerslot is stunned. They cancelled the sequel and pivot hard, patching servers, reworking systems, and adding features just to keep up with the demand. Overnight, this forgotten indie title becomes a cultural reset. Chapter 3. The fall begins. But fame, especially sudden viral fame, comes with baggage. Among Us wasn't built for tens of millions of players. It was a 3-person game held together with duct tape and good intentions. The servers struggled, hacking became rampant, players couldn't trust public lobbies, bots spammed matches with political messages, and people got bored. The core loop, task, lie, accuse, vote, was still fun, but there were only so many maps, so many ways to say red's kinda sus. New roles weren't available. There were no built-in friends list. Customization was limited. Updates took months, and by the time new content dropped, many players had already moved on. Meanwhile, other games filled the space. Fall Guys launched with the same chaotic social energy. Phasmophobia added spooky co-op deduction. Fortnite added its own impostor mode. And Among Us started to feel like last year's game. It never truly crashed, but the momentum slipped. From 500,000 Twitch views to 50,000. From trending daily to only being mentioned during crossovers or memes. The question wasn't, is Among Us dead? It was, where did everyone go? Chapter 4. Among Us today. Fast forward to now. Among Us isn't gone. It's just no longer everywhere. Innerslot expanded the team, updates are more consistent, they added new maps, like the airship, new roles, scientist, engineer, guardian angel, shake up gameplay. A counts, friend list, colourblind modes, things that were missing during the peak, they're here now. And Among Us VR, it's surprisingly good. Suddenly, being chased down a hallway by an imposter in first person isn't just funny, it's terrifying. The game has evolved from a party gimmick into a solid online experience. They've also embraced their legacy. You can play as a SpongeBob crewmate, BTS had a collab, so did FNAF. It's part of gaming culture now, whether or not it's topping the charts. Among Us might never recapture the lightning in a bottle of 2020, but it doesn't have to. It served its moment. It brought people together when the world was falling apart, and it taught everyone a very important lesson. Trust no one. Among Us didn't succeed because of polish or marketing. It succeeded because it felt real, chaotic, emotional, human. It wasn't built for the spotlight, but when the world needed it, it was there. This was Frame Theory. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to check out next Wednesday's deep dive into how cozy games quietly became a billion-dollar genre.